Marketing director of large Chinese firm loses job, now works as food shipper. Why is Beijing refusing to put forth a stimulus package for Chinese households? Final destination of China's crisis. Hong Kong hit hard by new U.S. high-tech investment ban. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Marketing director of large Chinese firm loses job, now works as food shipper. Since the beginning of this year, China's economy has been in rapid decline, with a lot of real estate companies going bankrupt and the number of unemployed climbing. With China's economic downturn, it is not only difficult for young people to find jobs, but it is even more difficult for middle-aged people to find jobs. According to NTD-TV, Mr. Du, who once served as a marketing director for a Chinese enterprise listed among the Fortune Global 500 companies, has been unemployed for a long time and is now working as a food delivery driver. On August 8, Mr. Du posted a video on social media platforms, saying that despite being jobless for over a year since his departure from a Fortune Global ranked company in China, he still hasn't been able to find a suitable job. He mentioned that he even lowered his salary expectations but was still unsuccessful in his job search. To make a living, he was forced to work as a food delivery driver, earning 80 to 90 yuan a day, equivalent to 10.97 to $12.35. This income was not enough to meet his needs, so he had to take on additional part-time jobs. Initially, it was challenging for him to accept this reality, but he had no other option. He explained, delivering 22 orders a day, I would end up drenched in sweat, feeling like I had no control over my own legs. I remember the first month being especially tough. I only made 4,000 yuan, which was far from enough to cover even a fraction of my 15,000 yuan monthly mortgage. He added that he now delivers 30 orders a day. According to Mr. Du, young Chinese people can't find jobs now, let alone the middle-aged. His experience, reflecting the rapid decline in China's economy, attracted many mainland netizens. One commented, I was also a director of a large company before, and I have not found a job after the COVID pandemic, and I have not dared to order food for a long time. Another said, my husband is also unemployed this year. His company collapsed. In the past, the monthly income was at least 20,000 yuan, and in good times it was 40,000 or 50,000 yuan. And now he has to work for an online ride-hailing company. As we've reported previously, China's recent economic downturn has been affecting the daily lives of Chinese people. In June, China's youth unemployment rate reached a historic high of 21.3%, and in July, the Chinese Communist Party authorities abruptly stopped releasing data. A scholar from Peking University has mentioned that China's unemployment rate is nearing 50%, a situation that has the potential to spark political turmoil. Why is Beijing refusing to put forth a stimulus package for Chinese households? The Chinese economy is slowing. Whether we accept the official data that China will slow to 5% growth in 2023 or look to unofficial data about the state of affairs, all agree the Chinese economy is hurting. According to textbook economics, when an economy slows, the government steps in and elevates public spending to boost activity and reduce the severity of the slowdown. With so many obvious pressures, why is Beijing refusing to put forth a stimulus package for Chinese households? In the article Why Won't Beijing Stimulate China's Economy, published August 24, author Christopher Balding analyzed the rationale behind Beijing's action regarding stimulus. Come back to China's economy. Even though the official gross domestic product growth rate still tops 5%, few believe it, and it does not seem to capture the struggles of firms and individuals. Youth unemployment above 20% became such a political issue that officials stopped publishing the data. Fixed asset growth, a key indicator in an investment-heavy economy, reported year-over-year growth in July of only 3.4%. Imports, a key sign of health in an expanding economy, shrunk in the first half of 2023 by 6.7%. Investment in real estate, which with linked industries accounts for roughly 30% of the Chinese economy, is down 8.5% through the first half of the year. Even if we believe the official growth numbers, there is lots of real pain. Chinese economists have openly suggested government and household stimulus to combat the downturn. Wall Street expected all year some splashy outlay to boost growth. Most China watchers in Washington think tanks have been arguing for boosting household consumption with a government-led stimulus. The chorus became so constant that Beijing specifically ruled out household stimulus spending, using the example of how little would be achieved if each citizen received 1,000 yuan from the government. Open almost any undergraduate economic textbook, and it will prescribe increasing government spending during a recession or material slowdown to boost economic activity. It is taken as an almost religious canon that the government should borrow to stimulate economic activity during a downturn. So why is Beijing refusing to stimulate during its most serious downturn in years? There are likely multiple reasons Beijing is reluctant to engage in some significant stimulus. First, as the official statement shooting down household stimulus hopes noted, Beijing policymakers see a minimal return on investment. Using the official example, if everyone received 1,000 yuan, we assume that every yuan was spent before the end of the year. This would likely add around 1% to GDP and boost retail sales by about 3%. More realistically, especially given the high level of household indebtedness, a significant amount would be saved or used to pay down debt, significantly lowering any boost to consumption activity. Beijing does not see this as a good return on investment. Second, calls for stimulus or government-assisted household consumption typically represent a cyclical problem, whereas, in China, it is a structural problem. Commentators calling for household stimulus correctly point out that Chinese household consumption only accounts for about 40% of GDP, whereas this number approaches 80% in the United States. Many conclude that the solution is to boost Chinese household consumption as a percentage of GDP well above 40%, starting with government stimulus. This makes the error of assuming this is an accident of history rather than the design of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, to suppress household well-being in favor of the state and state-owned enterprises. The entire Chinese economic model depends on the suppression of household consumption to fund state and CCP interests. CCP policymakers compound this error by equating robust household sectors, which need transitory assistance or boosting, to the complete foundational reform needed to recalibrate the imbalances in the Chinese economy. A one-off boost to Chinese households will have minimal impact on the Chinese economy or address the enormous imbalances that need to be addressed. Stimulus in other countries is used as a transitory measure, whereas change in China requires reforming the foundational structures. Commentators who advocate for household consumption boosting measures fail to grasp that they are advocating not for a simple stimulus boost to buy household goods but for structural change of the CCP and the Chinese economic model, which will not happen. Third, CCP policymakers do not prioritize households and individual well-being. This lays out an entirely different set of priorities about how an economy should be boosted if any stimulus does arrive. Since the global financial crisis in 2008, the CCP has consciously prioritized boosting investment through state-owned enterprise bank lending, with state-owned and linked enterprises prioritizing boosting heavy industry and infrastructure projects. The entire problem of commentators advocating household stimulus was created very consciously by channeling capital and resources to state-favored institutions. Whether it is the self-reliance push in technology or the rickety state-linked sectors from banking to development and metals that depend on state support to stay solvent, Beijing depends on these firms for employment and stability as much as they depend on Beijing. So what will Beijing do? Beijing sees the economic malaise throughout China. But if stimulus comes, expect to see more of the infrastructure, self-reliance, and lavish spending we have seen before, not the change of model so many expect. With lending going overwhelmingly to state-linked firms, private enterprises and households simply are not a priority for Beijing. By protecting state-owned firms and local government projects, Beijing can demonstrate stability and progress. Splashing money on individuals removes their ability to control what will happen, how money will be spent, or direct the priorities of the state. That is simply a bridge to nowhere for the CCP. Final destination of China's crisis. China's economy is in big trouble. Bad news appears constantly. But what is the ending of all this mess? In the article, The Final Destination of China's Crisis, published August 24, author La Kacheng presented some possible outcomes, and gave an analysis about this question. With foreign investment withdrawing from China and a series of lockdowns in past years, many businesses closed down, resulting in massive unemployment. Housing sales were hit hard, leading to the endgame of developers' Ponzi scheme. That says developers' chain of repeated augmentation in investment by recycling cash from house sales is broken. As the loop fails, developers also fail to pay back their debts, causing a series of defaults. This, in turn, transmits to other areas. The first affected is trusts, but additional financial sectors will sooner or later be affected. The immediate impact of this is Japanization, which means prolonged debt deleveraging with stagnation and deflation. But this is not the end of the story. Japanization is only one of the outcomes under careful management where all unwinding and deleveraging processes are done orderly. If deleverage is done too much or too fast, such order is not guaranteed. However orderly it is done, the insolvency might happen to a substantial portion of the private sector, ultimately becoming sovereign insolvency. When China was ruled by the Chinese Nationalist Party, Kuomintang, during wartime, the global depression in the early 1930s and the institutional government corruption led to persistent capital outflow and recession for years. Naturally, the government tended to finance the deficits by printing money, creating something out of nothing. The story ending is familiar. The intention to monetarize debts results in exchange rate depreciation and hyperinflation. At the onset of the Depression, China experienced deflation from 1932 to 1934. However, monetary expansion did not stop throughout the period. After the Depression period, when the economy recovered, budget deficits did not improve but got even worse. Monetary expansion was in line with such exponential speed, suggesting that government spending and money printing were uncontrolled. As a result, the currency depreciated in a similar manner, and hyperinflation began after a few years. Finally, the regime collapsed in 1948. Which route would China follow, the Japanese one or the Nationalist Party one? It depends, especially depends on whether there is a civil war. The wartime experience was a civil war where economic and political regimes collapsed. If the current dictatorship is powerful enough to suppress all revolutions to avoid civil war, then the ordered deleveraging would still differ from Japan's outcome due to China's poor status, per capita GDP, and massive unemployment. Instead, a great famine like that in the Mao era or North Korea is likely. This is not an exaggeration. The outstanding debt black hole is of massive scale. As trusts, funds, or even banks incur significant losses, the deleveraging process will evaporate vast amounts of assets, causing extensive bankruptcies, including billionaires in the middle class. Finally, there could be no way out but to write off most debts, which means an equal amount of asset evaporation affecting many others. This will effectively destroy most markets and return to the nation's goal, communism like the 1950s to 60s. Hong Kong hit hard by new U.S. high-tech investment ban. In a bid to uphold its national security, the United States has rolled out a high-tech investment ban targeting China with the unprecedented inclusion of both Hong Kong and Macau on the list of restricted entities. Experts predict this move will deliver a significant blow to Hong Kong's high-tech sector. On August 9, an executive order was issued by President Joe Biden, effectively imposing restrictions on American companies, citizens, and permanent residents investing in sensitive high-end technology enterprises in China. This covers domains such as artificial intelligence, AI, semiconductors and microelectronics, and quantum information technologies. The White House stated that these three categories were chosen because of their crucial role in the accelerated development of advanced military, intelligence, surveillance, and network technologies. Notably, the attached appendix to Biden's executive order specifies China alongside its special administrative regions, Hong Kong and Macau. Among the key provisions of the executive order is the mandate for U.S. investors and business figures to routinely disclose their investments in mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau to the U.S. government. Even entities not directly involved in the three sensitive technology sectors are now required to periodically submit reports outlining their investments in these high-tech fields. Mr. Tang Jingyuan, a political commentator residing in the United States, conveyed in an interview that this move might prompt foreign investors in Hong Kong to reconsider their positions, impacting both the city's technological and economic landscape. Mr. Tang emphasized that, unlike previous bans and sanctions, which largely aimed to prevent China from purchasing certain technologies, this ban centers on curtailing China's ability to develop these technologies internally. The repercussions of this investment ban extend beyond financial implications, and has an impact on Hong Kong's ability to attract skilled workers. Historically, the skilled workforce tends to follow investment flows. Without sufficient investment, innovation will be stifled because of a dearth of skilled workers. Mr. Tang said, the three sectors in which President Biden restricted investment fall precisely within the realm of venture capital technology. He added that after the U.S. restrictions, other Western allies are likely to follow suit. As a result, China's past reliance on foreign investment to drive high-tech finance may no longer work. Naturally, Hong Kong would be affected, and its status as an international financial center would continue to decline. According to an unnamed source in VOA, before President Biden's investment ban was set in motion, the U.S. Department of Commerce and Treasury Department engaged in consultations with 175 industry representatives, as well as allied partners including G7 nations, the European Union, and the United Kingdom. These partners are also allegedly poised to implement comparable measures based on their own circumstances. So what was the advantage that Hong Kong once enjoyed? Before and after China's entry into the World Trade Organization, WTO, China leveraged Hong Kong to attract skilled workers, funds, and technology. Western countries, notably the United States, accorded special privileges to Hong Kong, granting it exemptions from tariffs. The Hong Kong dollar enjoyed free convertibility with foreign currencies. A critical point of distinction was that certain Western high-tech sanctions imposed on China didn't apply to Hong Kong. This distinctive trade status propelled Hong Kong into a premier entrepot, solidifying its position as one of the world's major commodity export hubs. Initially, foreign capital poured into Hong Kong, which then funneled investments into mainland China. The city thrived on the re-export trade, earning substantial service fees. For instance, in 2018, the re-export trade volume in Hong Kong exceeded 3 times the size of its GDP. Hong Kong only needed to charge around 6% in service fees to achieve a scale of 20% of its GDP. Hong Kong's substantial gains were notably derived from re-exporting technology goods, particularly electronics and telecommunications products, which were in high demand in Shenzhen, the globe's largest manufacturing hub for electronic and telecommunications goods. Research from the Overview of Hong Kong's Electronics Industry revealed that before 2022, Hong Kong held the mantle as the world's leading integrated circuits exporter, the second largest exporter of mobile phones, computer accessories, and cameras, and the third largest exporter of imaging and recording equipment. The electronics sector emerged as Hong Kong's dominant industry, commanding a 72.6% share of total exports in 2021. Roughly 3/4 of these exports were comprised of components often transshipped to mainland China for assembly and processing before reaching global markets via Hong Kong. Finished electronic products constituted about 1/4 of exports, primarily encompassing consumer electronics such as audiovisual equipment, computers, and telecommunications devices. Many high-end chips globally found their route through Hong Kong before entering mainland China. However, the landscape shifted in October 2022 with the introduction of the Biden administration's semiconductor high-end chip ban, which significantly impacted China's semiconductor industry. The subsequent departure of foreign capital and the closure of factories in the Shenzhen Technology Industrial Zone contributed to a downturn in Hong Kong's imports and exports. Currently, Hong Kong has relinquished its once absolute edge in the re-export trade. Its international financial standing diminished due to the implementation of Hong Kong's national security law. The city is now transitioning to align with Beijing's strategic vision, aiming to harness global resources for the development of cutting-edge technologies, particularly core domains like high-end chips, artificial intelligence, and quantum technology. Supporting this transformation is outlined in China's 14th Five-Year Plan. During Chinese leader Xi Jinping's visit to Hong Kong, his first stop was the Hong Kong Science Park, where he stressed the pivotal role of Hong Kong in technology innovation. The Hong Kong government is vigorously advocating for technological advancement and actively pursuing the acquisition of skilled workers. The unexpected investment ban instituted by the Biden administration, encompassing both mainland China and its special administrative regions, Hong Kong and Macau, has dealt a severe blow to the high-tech sectors in Hong Kong. Veteran media personality Tang Hao noted on his personal platform Crossroads of the World that in the past, the United States imposed various sanctions against China while sparing Hong Kong and Macau, enabling them to acquire dual-use military-civilian technology or products from the United States. He added, they were then quietly transported to the mainland for military purposes. Much U.S. funding also flowed into China via Hong Kong or Macau for investment. However, this time, the United States has decidedly cut off this route by placing restrictions on funds to Hong Kong and Macau. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.